Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today we're going to be talking about Shenmue 3 and the fact that I got to play it early. It was awesome. So I'm going to be talking about in details about the actual gameplay, what I thought of it, and all that kind of stuff. I'm also going to talk about some of the recent news and things like that with the game and all that stuff. But I'm going to start that at a very specific time code, which is here, because before that I'm going to preamble my whole story at E3 specifically about Shenmue and how I got to play it and meeting Yu Suzuki and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't care about that and you just want to hear what the gameplay was like, by all means skip ahead to this time code, no problem. Anyway, okay, here we go. So obviously, yes, I went to E3. And I had actually no plans to play Shenmue 3. I mean, I would have loved to, but I wasn't invited to do so. And every time I reached out to Deep Silver, I really got nowhere. Even with Sega pushing them for me and Corey pushing them, Corey Marshall being the voice actor, Rio pushing them for me, they wouldn't talk to me. Okay, fine. One guy at Deep Silver would, but he didn't have the capacity to arrange something like that. So it didn't matter, and I didn't think I was going to be able to play it. Okay, fine. So the beginning of E3 starts, all the conferences, all that stuff. I do all those rounds and everything. And that's when I made all my videos, by the way. So thank you guys for watching those. And then, day one of the actual convention, the convention floor days, I go to that and I start hanging out with Corey. I got him a badge and he came out and we just chilled out. I introduced him to some people at Sega and stuff like that, and we were just talking, having a good time, whatever. And then he was like, yeah, so just, Yu Suzuki's upstairs, and I'm going to go see him and check out Shenmue 3. And I'm like, bruh. And he's just like, I can't bring you. He's like, I'd love to, but, it's a little awkward. I barely know these guys, and I just don't want to, get kicked out of there or whatever. I don't want to cause problems. I'm like, I completely get it. It's cool. No worries. So he goes off, and he does his thing. And I go off and I do my thing. Meet up with him later, chat for a bit, all good. And then as the day ends, I go off to the ID at Xbox party. Hence I have this wristband on still. I don't know. I probably should take these off, but I still have them on. Anyway, so that I went to the party for this. I was invited to that by Chris Charla. Chris Charla is the head of ID at Xbox. I know him a bit. I've met him a few times. We've chatted and stuff. He's a good guy. So I'm at his party, and I'm hanging out. I go over and I meet up with a buddy of mine named James, who is actually the head of Mega Cat Studios, and they make, indie video games, like Genesis stuff, like Coffee Crisis and things like that. And so he and I are hanging out, chatting in a corner, and out of nowhere, who walks up but other than Yu Suzuki himself, along with his translator and his daughter. And it was like, holy shit, Yu Suzuki's right there. And then I talked to, James, like, Yu Suzuki. And he's just like, yeah, I mean, he knows who he is, too. He doesn't fangirl the way I did, but he was like, dude, that's awesome. Yu Suzuki's right there. I mean, we were just talking about the game. And it's like, I know. And so then I just kind of look over at them because I can't help but do it. They're standing 2 feet away from me. And I look at his daughter, and then she looks at me, and she's just like, you look familiar. And I was like, yeah, I do a lot of stuff for Shenmue, and Yu Suzuki's like, of course. He's heard it a million times. And she's like, right, yes, I saw all those pictures with you and Corey. Because Corey and I had been going around that day. To Deep Silver's credit, they had put up a bunch of banners throughout the hall at E3 of Shenmue 3. And it was actually very cool. There's a lot of good photos of that stuff and video footage. And I'll show some of it here so you guys can see what that was like. But it was, it was pretty neat. And so I was just talking to her for a second. I'm like, look, I don't mean to bother you guys, but would it be okay if I took a photo with him? Would he mind, And she's like, yeah, of course, it's fine. And so he and I took this photo together, and that was that, and then shook my hand, and then, they just went on to go do their rounds, and then they left. And, of course, the conspiracy theory was like, Xbox One version, maybe? But really it had nothing to do with that, and I can confirm that wasn't happening because I walked over to Chris Charla after that. Again, the head of ID at Xbox. If there's any person who would have known that Yu Suzuki was there to talk about putting the game on Shenmue 3 on Xbox One, it would have been him. So I walk over to him. First I thank him for, having me at the party and all that stuff. And then I just like, dude, I just talked to Yu Suzuki. He's like, what do you mean here? What, here? And I'm like, yeah, at your party. He's like, you're telling me Yu Suzuki came to my party? And I'm like, yeah, he was over there. He's like, we gotta find him. I need to tell him how great Sword of Vermilion was. I was like, it was not a sentence I was expecting to hear. And he just kind of darts off, and I'm following after him, and we're looking around for Yu Suzuki, but by that point he was totally gone. He only came for a few minutes, and I can only speculate as to he was just doing the rounds like we all do. Like I went to Facebook Gaming's party. You know why I did that? I'm not on Facebook Gaming. You just go to do the rounds. That's how these kind of things work. But people have conspiratorial hats on for stuff like this. Anyway, so chatted up with him, and then whatever. The day's over, and I was just like on cloud 9 because I had met Yu Suzuki and all that. Awesome. So the next day, Corey comes back to E3, and we hang out some more. And we go over to the Sega booth, and we're just wandering, and then as a matter of coincidence, the voice actors and body doubles or body actors for Judgment, as well as some of the Yakuza guys and the creator of Yakuza, were all just hanging there along with us, and Corey being one of them, and some Shenmue fans congregated. It was like this weird moment where you had like Shenmue, Yakuza, and Judgment all just fusing together in this one little spot. And as we're all just hanging out with people, hanging out with fans and stuff, who shows up but Yu Suzuki, his daughter, and his translator, who just walk out of nowhere and are like, oh, hey, first person Yu Suzuki looks at is me. He waves at me. He recognized me from the party yesterday. He's like, probably in his mind, he's like, it's that dork from the Xbox party. But, anyway, so after that, what we decide to do is we're just chilling there, and then Corey starts talking to him, and so they look at me and they go, okay, I guess he's kind of legit because he's hanging with Corey, whatever. And it was a cool moment. It was a cool moment, but I didn't fangirl that time because I'd already met him yesterday. I didn't bother him for a photo because I already had mine, blah, blah, blah. That didn't stop the other fans who were just like, oh, it's Yu Suzuki, and then, like the awkward bowing and stuff like that, and he's just like, chill. It was cool. And then Yu Suzuki goes off and whatever. And it's like, dude, I just met Yu Suzuki twice in 2 days. It was crazy. And I was like, that's the perfect thing. Like I've done my E3, I've had my business meetings, I've done all that stuff. I've made all my friends jealous, you know what I mean? Like hanging out at, because I'm friends with a bunch of the people in the Metal Jesus crew. I'm sitting there texting Kelsey. I'm like, I just met Yu Suzuki again, like etc. And she's like, you son of a bitch, blah 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 blah, and whatever. So I'm all good. I'm good. I'm happy. So I was actually going to leave because my hotel, I had to check out my hotel the next morning, and I was just gonna go. But my buddies convinced me to delay my flight and just chill out. And I was like, all right, I'll go enjoy the last day of E3. It's fine. So the hotel hung onto my bags, which will be important. So they held onto my bags, and then I went off to the convention. I just wandered. This time I had no meetings, nothing specific. I was able to do certain things which don't matter for the purposes of this video, like check out Cyberpunk and things like that, but it doesn't matter. At one point I was just like, man, I would just love to go check out Shenmue 3. Like, I really would like to do that. And I'm starting to think, like, look, man, I've met this man twice now. They know who I am. They know I've hung with Corey. Maybe I can sweet talk my way in there. Maybe I can do this, It was highly arrogant, but at the same time, I was like, I have nothing else to do. So I go upstairs to the Deep Silver booth. Now, when people envision E3, they always see that big show floor with all the TVs and the games and all that stuff, where public's walking around playing stuff. Yes, that's there, but there's also the upstairs area, which is just the corporate stuff, where it's like private demos and just people who have a corporate entity there just to arrange business deals and all that kind of stuff. So that's where Deep Silver was. They didn't have a big booth. They just had that. And I was like, okay, let me go over there, and I'm going to talk to the receptionist / bouncer, because that's basically what they are there for, to kick you out if you're not supposed to be there. And I'm like, that's as far as I think I'm going to get. I'm going to walk over there. I'm going to ask specifically for his daughter to talk to, and I'm going to get kicked out immediately. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. I call up Corey. I'm like, this is my plan, man. What do you think? He's like, go for it, dude. I was like, okay. So I go over there, and I ask the guy for Nanami Suzuki. And he doesn't even say anything. The guy to the right of me is just like, oh yeah, she's back here. Come with me. And I just get whisked past there. And I was like, I'm getting in. I walked right into the thing. And then I go over and she's just right there. And I'm just like, and she looks a little surprised to see me, as understandably she should be. I go over and I'm just like, hey, hi, I know I wasn't supposed to be in here. Hopefully you remember me from yesterday. I was hanging with Corey and stuff. She's like, yeah, I remember you. And I was like, yeah, I don't have an appointment. I was just, if nobody was playing it and there was nothing to do, I was hoping to just check out the game. If not, it's cool. I will walk right out of here, no problem at all. And she goes, well, she just kind of laughed a little, and she's like, well, your timing is kind of amazing, because Eurogamer is supposed to be here, but they haven't shown up. So I think it should be okay. But she's like, I can't just do that. You know, you need to get permission from Deep Silver first. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Who do I talk to? Like, do I call somebody? And she's like, no, you have to ask him. And just points at a guy who's like 3 feet away from me. So I just like turn. I'm like, hey, so she says that I need your permission to play Shenmue 3. Is that cool? Like, is that fine with you? And he looks over at her. He's like, yeah, I don't care. Is it okay with you? She's like, I don't care. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. I don't care. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna play Shenmue 3. And so then she's like, all right, just go in this room. So I go in the room. And who's in there? Yu Suzuki and his translator. This is the two of them just chilling out in this room with Shenmue 3. And so they're like, oh, he's like, oh, hey, he remembers me again. He's like, I'm sure he's thinking, the fat dork. Yes, of course. So I go in and I sit down. And she tells me, she's like, just keep in mind, if Eurogamer shows up, I got to kick you out of here. But otherwise, it's a 15-minute demo. It's pre-timed. It just, no matter what you're doing, it ends in 15 minutes. There's a clock at the top. Pay attention to your time. Other than that, enjoy. And I was like, yeah. And so I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, they're just going to sit there and watch me play the game, and I'm just going to try playing Shenmue. But Yu Suzuki's not having it that way. He's just like, the dude starts guiding me on the game. Yu Suzuki personally is like, asking me what I want to do, what I want to check out. He starts listing things. He's like, do you want capsule toys? Do you want fighting? Do you want this? Do you want that? And I was just like, I'm personally being, and throughout that, and we'll talk more about the gameplay later in this video, but he starts telling me, like, go here, try that, and he's making jokes with me and stuff, and like laughing at some of the stuff I'm doing, and like, ooh, getting excited at certain moments, and I'm just like, this. And somebody said it best in one of those comments, like on, I think it was like on Facebook when I posted it in the 500K. Somebody said, this is like Make-A-Wish Foundation level of crazy. Because it should not have happened. It really shouldn't have happened. But anyway, so played the game. I had an amazing time. And I asked him afterwards, like, is it cool if I get another photo? Because they had this cool Shenmue banner, like, in the room there. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So I get this new banner and everything, and it's just like, the photo was great, and blah, 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 blah. So then I leave, and I talked to his daughter for a while, which was very fascinating. Learned a lot of stuff, some of which we'll talk about. But then, yeah, and then I leave, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe that just happened. So then I'm like texting everybody. I'm like, and people are like, fuck you, you asshole. Like, how did you get to do that? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I'm assuming that's the end of my Shenmue journey for E3. Nope. After the show floor closes, I have to leave because I have a media badge. I don't have an exhibitor badge, so I'm not allowed to stay after hours. So what I decided to do is I go hang out with the Metal Jesus crew for a while, and I'm regaling them with the stories of my Make-A-Wish Foundation level thing, and all that fun stuff. And then I headed back over to my hotel to pick up my bags, or at least that was my plan. But one of my buddies who was working the show floor was just like, hey man, you want to go get dinner, after we're out of here? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And so I was like, all right, I'll just wait there until, you're ready to go. And he's like, sure, no problem. So then I'm just chilling in the hotel lobby. And I get a message from my buddy at IGN Japan, who is a huge Shenmue fan. And he's like, yo, are you still here? Do you want to hang out for a bit? And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to hang out. So I found out where he was, and I just went over to his place. And we chilled out for a bit. We were talking Shenmue for like 15, 20 minutes. And it was a good, awesome conversation because he was the only person I could really talk to about Shenmue 3, having had played it and all that stuff. Who had also played it, so you could bounce ideas off each other and all that kind of stuff. And it was a good conversation. And afterwards, my other buddies came to pick me up, and I was like, all right, man, it's good to see you, bro, hug it out, and head back to the hotel. So I'm in the car with two of my friends, and they're both just dead tired. They've had to pack all this crap up, and they're just, done. And so we drive over back to my hotel, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to run inside, and they were like, yeah, go ahead, we'll just wait here. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go inside, I head down the stairs, and I get out, and who's sitting there? Yu Suzuki and his daughter. And it was like, holy shit, you're staying here too? She asked me that. She was like, wait, you're staying in this hotel? I'm like, yeah. I'm just here to pick up my bags. It was one of those things where he has to think I'm stalking him, at this point, because I've run into him 4 times. But at the same time, it's like, I had no choice. The first 2 times he encountered me. The 3rd time, admittedly, yes, I shouldn't have been there, but whatever. And the 4th time, yes, I found them, but completely accidentally. It would have been impossible for me not to have been seen that 4th time. And it would have been even weirder to try to avoid them. You know what I mean? So I just thought, own it, go over there, say hi, and leave. And then she saw my shirt, which I guess I'd worn this shirt, this exact same one, to play the game. But I guess they didn't notice it because it was covered by my badge or whatever. And she's like, yo, you have a great Shenmue shirt on and stuff. And then she called me the #1 Shenmue fan. So, I'm just saying. No, I don't actually believe that. I'm sure she said that to a lot of people. But still, it was just like, ah! And then I was telling her like how crazy it was because I had just met up with the dude from IGN Japan, who they know very well. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool, blah, 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 blah. And so I just, said hi and thank you for the gameplay again. It was awesome, blah. And so I go get my bags and I leave, get in the car. And I'm like, hey, remember how you didn't want to go inside? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you remember how you wanted to meet the Yu Suzuki? And he just kind of connects the dots. He's like, are you telling me he's in there right now? I'm like, he's in the lobby. And he's just like, can we... I'm like, we can't go in there now, dude. I just left. It's way too awkward. And he's like, that's all he wanted. But we couldn't do it. So then we left. And so that was my insane Shenmue experience at E3. It was bonkers that actually happened. So, now, of course, what a lot of you want to talk about, the gameplay. How does the game actually perform? Hey, welcome to all the people who jumped ahead in the time code to catch you up on things. I got to play the game. Yu Suzuki personally guided me through it. It was crazy. So I have to fully admit my bias before we go into this, because obviously I'm an extremely devout Shenmue fan. The game means a hell of a lot to me. The other part of it is I played for 15 minutes. I played for 15. That's it. 15 minutes is not a lot of time with Shenmue. And the other part of it is, of course, I had Yu Suzuki personally saying, try this, do this, try that. It's not like I'm going to veer off and be like, no way, sit down, you. I'm going to do this my way. You just do what the hell Yu Suzuki tells you to do. That's just how that goes. So here was my gameplay experience. It starts off with this little like cutscene, and then you're dropped into this like open world, like a village type of thing. And so he just started asking me, he's like, he listed a couple things. He's like, do you like fighting? Do you like gambling? Do you like, turtle races? He started listing some stuff. And I said, how about a capsule toy? And he goes, a capsule toy. So I walk right up and I get a capsule toy. I get a couple. And then at some point, I just started to get like a bunch of capsule toys. And he's like, hang on, you're going to spend all your money. And I was like, okay, all right. And he's like, we only have 15 minutes. And I was like, okay, good point. And so we go inside this little house. He tells me to go in this little house and talk to this guy. He's like, you'll get a job. And I'm like, okay, I'll get a job. And so I talked to this dude, and basically you can do wood chopping. Now, wood chopping is one of probably the job mechanics within the game. So, like the first two games, obviously you can work and get money. Unlike the first game, which kind of forced you to have a job, and the Shenmue 2, you had to have a job, but you could change it up and do different types of things. This plays more like that, at least in the demo. And so this job in particular is wood chopping. So a big thing of wood will be there, and then there's this mechanic where Rio just kind of goes like this, and you basically just have to time it so you hit it and split it. And if you miss, you miss. But the more you get consecutively, the more money you get because you do it faster and more efficiently. It was cool. And then after that, he was talking about how you can like pick up every item in the game and look at everything, even though there's really no point to doing that. You can just do it, which was awesome. And then he said like, okay, do you want to try fighting? And I was like, sure. So he's like telling me, okay, go over here. So I like run up this hill up to like a dojo looking thing. And the first thing he has me do is try against like a wooden sparring type of thing. And so it's like, okay, go ahead and, do that. And I'm like, all right. And so I hit the wooden sparring thing. And the way it works is kind of like Shenmue 2 when you're first learning the iron palm and you're hitting the tree. And it's like, there's that little like thing that's like, okay, and now, that type of thing. It was slightly similar to that, except it was like this blue thing that just matches up at the right point, and then when you match it at the right spot, boom, you hit. And either he was being very nice, or other people who played the game weren't good at it. I don't know, but like I would almost always successfully do it. And after like the third time in a row, he was like, "Oh," because he just hadn't. I don't know. Either again he was being nice, or it was. It was just he wasn't used to people being actually good at that part. I don't know. But anyway, so I did that, and then he was like, how about fighting? And I'm like, sure. So he takes me, and he's like, go in there and check out the dojo. And so I go into the dojo, talk to this guy. And then this was kind of funny. There's a cutscene that starts, and he's telling me, just skip. And I'm pressing all the buttons, trying to skip it, and it won't skip it. So he stands up, and he starts like, pushing the buttons while I'm holding the controller trying to skip it, and he just says something like, I don't like cutscenes. And I interpreted that as many different possibilities. Either he's seen this thing a million times and he's sick of seeing it, or it's this demo's only 15 minutes, so there's no time for this type of thing. I didn't interpret it all as like, I don't want you to see this because it's like private, secret information. It was nothing like that. I think it was just like, ugh. Right? And then there was also the possibility that you can't skip cutscenes, but based on the fact that the creator there is trying to do it, it implied that you can skip them, but possibly within the demo you can't. I don't know. It's just what happened. So eventually we get past that, and then I do like an actual fight with this guy. Now I know a lot of people had questions about the combat mechanics of this game. So here's what I have to say about that. It does appear that throw moves really aren't a thing. I couldn't get them to work, but I also only played the fighting part for like a minute and a half. So maybe 2 minutes tops. So it took me a second to get used to it. I have to say that. It just took me a moment because I felt a little off. It was much closer to Shenmue 2's fighting system, which is better because I didn't really like Shenmue 1's fighting system as well. But it's, I really had no struggles with it. And after like a second where I kind of fumbled and trying to figure myself out, then I just beat the living crap out of the guy. And, he seemed pretty impressed by that. And so that was all good. And then I did this sparring thing, which was basically the exact same thing as a fight, but rather than that, the guy's just kind of waiting and you can practice moves on him. And then there's that's where they're teaching you certain specific combo moves and like press boom, 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 it kind of presents itself like a QTE to teach you stuff, which was cool. That was done. And then they introduced a mechanic that I had no idea was going to be in this game. And it only came up briefly. So I leave the dojo, and I don't know where Ryo just says, like, I'll be useless if I don't eat. And I was like, they introduced eating. And I was like, what? And I look at his energy level, and it's like way down. And then Yu Suzuki tells me, like, you have to eat. He has to eat. So that I push this button, and then it brings up this whole, like, screen prompt. A little like the way Yakuza does it, where there's this big menu system, and there's food in there, and you can just have him eat to regain energy. It didn't seem particularly invasive or anything like that. It was just an option. So that way there's more items in the game for him to collect, and you get different food samples that have different energy levels and that kind of thing. So that was cool. I had him eat, like, it was kind of funny. It's like he had like 8 things of garlic and like 3 apples or something. And I was just like, so I ate like 1 thing of garlic. And then he was like, no. He puts his hand like on my hand and he just presses like A like a bunch of times. And it's just like, see, he eat all the garlic. So I just imagined Ryo sitting there taking like 8 fucking clovers of garlic. It was funny. Anyway, you don't see that, you just imagine it. So anyway, then Ryo's back to full power. And then he's like, okay, let's try more. So we run on into the little village part, and he's like, how about some gambling? So we go over to this part, and it's like, okay, let's gamble. And then they told me, like, well, we look at the time, there's like 3 minutes left, and he's like, press all the money. He's just gamble everything. Because you have to exchange your money for tokens, and then the tokens are what you use to gamble in the gambling area. So he's like, just spend them all, who cares? So I grab them all, and I play like one of those, like, I forget exactly what it was, like some sort of dart type, not dart, some kind of like roll the dice type of game. I don't remember that too well, but what I do remember is slightly after that we did turtle racing, and then the turtle racing was actually pretty cool. It was all QTE based. You pick your turtle, and then you press the buttons that prompt you, and then if you win the race, you win, the bet. And after that is where it ended. Like, I ran out of time. So yeah, my vibe from it is it felt very Shenmue. And I've seen some people talking about it, some of the other people. There was like a French publication in particular that didn't really like it. And my interpretation of it is this game was not meant for a wide appeal. It was made for Shenmue fans. And that's high praise. Now, that's a good thing. Again, I fully admit my bias because I'm a super fan and I only played it for 15 minutes. So you have to take this with a grain of salt, but I'm just telling you what I thought based on what I experienced. And what I experienced was Shenmue. It felt like Shenmue. It was an open area. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. And it has a lot of these like odd little elements that no other game would ever bother doing, but that's part of what makes it so great. There was no time to know what the story was or any of that type of stuff. It was just go do stuff in an open environment. And within that, it was fucking fantastic. Now, I have to say, I'm actually very happy with it because I had concerns that he might have been under pressure from, who knows, Sony, Deep Silver, whatever, to try and do mass audience appeal. So this isn't a game where they went, hey, part of what was the problem with the other ones is they were too slow or they didn't appeal stuff, they didn't have violence in it, they didn't have like guns and explosions. Do that. There was none of that. This dude committed to making Shenmue 3 the way the fans who love Shenmue wanted it to feel. And it felt like Shenmue. So when you see negative articles out there, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Anybody could play this and hate it. That's perfectly acceptable. But they hate it on the basis that it doesn't play like a normal video game in their estimation. It plays like Shenmue. And Shenmue was never a game that appealed to everybody. That's just not how it is. Shenmue is a very powerful game to the right type of personality. And it feels like that. And so I'm happy with that. So I think Shenmue fans will be very happy. The wider audience, if they didn't like Shenmue 1 or 2, this is not going to be for them. It's just that simple. This is a direct continuation, and it doesn't hold your hand with that. It just goes, this is the next thing. So, yeah, that's my general interpretation of what I got to play. Another thing I'm sure people will ask is about background music. Yes, I can assure you the demo had background music. It was Shenmue. There was music I recognized, of course, from the first 2 games. Also, stuff I hadn't heard before, so it's very likely some of that, 80% unused Shenmue music that was produced originally. So I can only assume that will be there in the final game. I see no reason why they wouldn't be there. So next up, let's talk about there's some other things that basically happened. I've been seeing some things I would like to react to. First is a lot of people are complaining about the fact that Yu Suzuki said that by the end of Shenmue 3, the game's only 40% done, or at least Ryo's journey is only 40% done. And my reaction to this is, and he's been saying for like the last 20 years that there's supposed to be 7 games. And then he narrowed it down. He's like, I could do it in 5. If I really had to, I could push it down to 4, but really I'd prefer 5. And then lately, like 2 weeks ago, he was talking about how he'd prefer to do it in 6 now. So why do people think that Shenmue 3 is supposed to be the end? Now, I'm sure the common reason for that is, hey, we waited for 20 years or so. We waited 18 years, whatever. I don't like the idea of this possibly flopping and ending on another cliffhanger. He should just end it here. And to those people, I say, that makes surface sense. And it doesn't make analytical sense. It's ridiculous to think, it's the height of hubris to think that you can tell an artist, hey, condense your story, your game, your vision, all that for me. I don't feel like waiting anymore. Make it the way I want it. That's what happened with Star Wars. That's not what you want. So I applaud Yu Suzuki for the fact that he has committed to that vision and he's not compromising on it. He's like, hey, this is either we're doing it my way or it's not happening, which I'm sure is what people are afraid of. They're afraid of it not happening. But you want it to happen, vote with your wallet, buy the game, and then you will get Shenmue 4. Then that can happen. Anyway, so like I said, I see why people can be upset about that, but I also don't understand when I see certain, I know, devout Shenmue fans who get upset at the idea that Shenmue 3 won't conclude the story. That to me is even worse. I'm like, what kind of Shenmue fan doesn't want more of the games? And again, I'm sure it comes right back to the same argument. Fear of never continuing. But hey man, got news for you. That's Shenmue. Shenmue is intricately tied to the concept of, holy shit, I hope it actually comes out. Like that's just part of the edge of Shenmue, is like never knowing if it's really going to succeed or continue or not. That's just part of it at this point. It's ingrained into the culture of that game. So yeah, like I said, it's as simple as if you support it, if enough people support it, then there will be a Shenmue 4. It's just that simple. Believe it or not, it really is. Then there's the whole thing about the Shenmue trial at E3. Now, okay, so I've noticed a lot of people talking about how the fact that the Kickstarter backers had the option to get something called the Shenmue 3 trial, where you would get to play it early, blah, 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 and it would be basically a demo. And I've seen a lot of people complaining, being like, hey man, how come people at E3 get to play it and all the Kickstarter backers who funded the game didn't get it? On the surface, I completely agree with that. That doesn't make sense. Until you actually analyze it, and then you realize that whole argument doesn't hold any water. So the thing is, the E3 demo, what I think people think is going on is like, oh man, there's this demo, and it's in a giant area, and all of the public gets to run up and play it. I backed it, and I don't get to play it. Wrong. It's an extremely private demo that only journalists who are invited to go check out got to see. I was a unique case because I more or less sweet-talked my way in there, and that shouldn't have worked. But yeah, so it's not like that. Plus, that demo is 15 minutes long and is guided by Yu Suzuki himself. The trial thing, I'm sure, will still be coming and will have a lot more content to it. It won't be locked to 15 minutes, probably. This thing existed solely for the purpose of journalism, so journalists could do it, write articles, and promote the game. That's why it happened. That is not the same thing as we're going to release this demo into the wild. It's just not, that's not how these things are done. You need to start building momentum for the publication of the game, and then you go after the fans and say, okay, now here's your demo to continue that wave of energy. So to assume you need to get pissed about that first part is silly. Your demo is coming, And I've also seen people saying, like, it's not fair because the people who are playing it now never Kickstarter backed it. That's ridiculous. You have no idea. I mean, I did. I know Michael Huber did. There was a whole lot of people who got to play this demo who are the Kickstarter backers. That's part of the reason they were selected, and they're because they're already Shenmue fans. It makes sense. Then there's people who aren't because they're also traditional media. That makes sense too. That's just how the industry works. You'll get your demo. It will happen. I'm sure of it. Just chill. And now, the most obvious thing, the biggest elephant in the room that we must discuss, is the Epic situation. Now, I've come to learn a lot about this. I still don't know all the details. Obviously, I don't know the finances of it or anything like that. But what I can tell you is, what I'm authorized to tell you, is that this was not Yu Suzuki's decision. I know that firsthand. This was not his choice. There are people saying, oh, it was him, he did it. That's not true at all. Unfortunately, I can't explain how I know that, but you might be able to conclude it yourself. But yeah, he did not make that decision. That was a decision of Deep Silver. It just was. And I'm sure you're going to be like, well, you're just a fanboy who's trying to defend him just because you're a fan. It's like, and you're free to think that, but that's not the truth. The truth is he really didn't choose to do that. That's not, I could have told you that beforehand. Like, that's not how that works. And hell, I was saying it before I actually knew it because it was like, people don't understand. Like, the guy's the artist behind the game. He doesn't make the marketing decisions. That's not how that works. And that's the same with movies and television. The marketing department is always different from the artistic creation department. They're not the same. To assume that there's one guy making every single decision is absurd. That's just not how the industry works. But in this case, in particular, I can tell you, Yu Suzuki did not decide, hey, you know what we should do? Stick it only on Epic, because that would be hilarious. Like, that wasn't a conversation. It didn't happen that way. I'm in no position to tell anyone how they should or shouldn't feel about that, but it's small potatoes. But in case you're unaware, again, the game will eventually end up on Steam. It will be a year of exclusivity, which I know is not exactly the best consolation prize to a lot of people, but all I can say is, and this is obviously your adults, you can make your own choice, but if you want anything, if you want Shenmue 4, if you want Yu Suzuki to continue his vision and fulfill that, you got to support it. Now, I realize to a lot of people it's a complete deal breaker, but again, it will be on Steam eventually, and I agree with you completely that they should be looking into possible refunds to Kickstarter backers who wanted Steam copies, and they apparently are actually analyzing that. So I would say just wait a little longer, and I'm sure more information will come. And I hope you guys enjoyed all the coverage I did out there. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was informative. I'm looking forward to continuing to be involved in this as any way I can to help. It would be great. And I hope you guys continue to watch. Thank you very much. Please, if you don't mind, could you like and subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I hate saying it. I really hate saying it. Now I started saying that I hate saying it because it's still true. It's all true. I hate doing that. But if you don't, then YouTube punishes you hardcore, which I've learned. So yeah, thank you guys for doing that, and I'll see you all later.